Now that we've written some code, I want to introduce to you a very simple, very easy, but extremely important concept of being a developer. That is code formatting. So code formatting basically means how to format or organize your code. Aesthetically only, not the quality of the code, but basically just the aesthetics on how you organize your code. Now, a lot of new developers undermine this concept and they ignore this concept. And as a professional, it's extremely important, more important than you realize. So imagine if you were a salesperson, you were an excellent salesperson, but whenever you go for an interview or for meeting with a client, you just do not dress up correctly. You do not, express your thoughts. You express your thoughts correctly, but you're not dressed up correctly, right? You just don't pay attention to your presentation. That will hurt you as a professional. It will hurt your sales. Similarly, if you're a developer, which you are, right, because you're writing code, you go for an interview or you are working with a team, you're working with, your personal projects or for a company project, and you do not organize your code in the way I'm going to tell you today, then you will not be respected as a professional. So this is extremely important. So here are the few things that I want to share with you. So in JavaScript, when you name your variables, you just start with the lowercase, just the way I have. So a is a variable, first is a variable, child is a variable. I mean, it's a function, but still a variable representing a function. So these are different variable names, which are always starting with lowercase. That's just the convention in the JavaScript world. Some other languages have different conventions, but in JavaScript, you want to name your variables with lowercase 99% of the time. A lot of times when you're writing code and your variable names cannot be one word, they have to be multi-word. So let's say if you are creating a user object, so you say user, and then let's say user transactions, and you maybe have something called user a profile and user something else. So in this case, spelling of transactions is incorrect, but it doesn't matter. So in this case, when there's a multi-word over here, you want to capitalize the second word. If it's 3-word, you want to capitalize the third word starting character as well. So this formatting is actually called camel case, like such, right? So in JavaScript, you want to stick with the camel case convention. The second thing I want to introduce to you is indentation or indenting, code indenting. What is that? So you see when you saw my code, when I wrote a function and anything inside that function, so this function code block starts here and ends here. So anything inside that particular function had 2 spaces over here. 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here. This one has 4 spaces. We're going to get to that, but 2 spaces and 2 spaces. So since all of this code is inside this code block, I put 2 spaces so that it's easy for me and for my coworkers who are looking at my code and working with me to see, okay, everything over here is inside that particular function. It's easy to read. And this is extremely important, right? Now, a lot of teams and a lot of developers prefer 4 spaces, all right? And that's just a personal preference, but at least you need some space or indentation so it's easy to read. So you see everything is in one vertical line over here, right? It's easy to read. Now, with this example, since this child function is a nested child, or basically a child of this, so in this particular code block, I indented additional 2 spaces from the previous indent. So that's why it's 4 spaces in total, but it's 2 indents on its level. You see? So that's code indentation. You want to be really mindful of that. This is extremely important. Even if you do not put it, right, your code is going to function totally fine. But this is just not elegant code, right? If you just, are writing, not formatting your code correctly, it's just not professional. It just doesn't look right. It's difficult to read, right? So do not do that. It's a big no-no, all right? Moving on, use of space. Now, with JavaScript, you can use space a little bit more, freely. So let's say if you're writing a function and you provide some spaces over here, I'm going to save and refresh, nothing's going to change. The application is going to run exactly the way it needs to. You put some spaces over here, you put some spaces over here, save and refresh. The application runs as expected. But this is just not good, if you put extra spaces. But in many cases, let's say, if you like spaces, you can say, okay, every time I write the function name, I'm going to put a space over here. And whenever I start a code block, I'm going to put a space over here. So if you decide to do that, be consistent. So put it in all of your functions the same way. Save, refresh, nothing's going to change, but be consistent with whatever spacing you are deciding to choose. I like to keep it this way. So that's my preference. All right. Now, one last thing for now is code commenting. We already know that you can write comments in your code, and actually writing comments in your code is a very good practice. So let's say you want to describe what's happening over here, a short description. You can say getting info from DB, whatever, just something describing what it does. So this is basically you are writing notes for yourself and for your coworkers. If they come back and they don't want to look through the entire code, maybe it's a big amount of function features going on, you can write some comments for helpfulness, right? You can also write notes for yourself. So to do, and then refactor something, right? Not done correctly or whatever, like a bug found or whatever. You can write some notes, but do not overdo it. But you can write a lot of notes as long as they are elegant. So those are some tips that I wanted to share with you in this video. Take them very seriously, and I'm going to talk to you in the next.